This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 446. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and I am joined by my good buddy in Montana, Seahawker Adam Emmert.
Yeah, man. Time to do a flagship show after what felt like a whirlwind of 3 games and 11 days or something like that. It got kind of crazy there. Time to sit down, breathe a little bit, kind of take in what's happened over the last few weeks and maybe come to a more reasoned conclusion as to where we are now and what it could look like going forward and those sort of things. But didn't feel good losing to those dirty Niners the way we did. There's no doubt about that.
It didn't feel good losing to the Niners. It didn't feel good losing all 3 of those games in that 11-day stretch, because you go from a team that was 3-0 and you're thinking, okay, all right, this is a good way to start off. And now you're back down to 3-3 and the schedule's not looking all that much easier coming up over the next few weeks. But maybe it helps that you have a game where you can hopefully bounce back against the Falcons. But I know we'll get there. We do have the 49ers game to talk about.
We do. We can get into some of the nitty gritty of everything that went on throughout that game and all of that. But at the end of the day, when you sit down and you really watch it, even though it felt like a complete blowout from the jump, it really wasn't that. And when you realize that for about 3 straight possessions there, you were within 6 points from the end of the third through the beginning of the fourth, and the offense kind of sputters there, and just a couple little things here and there. It really is a game of inches. I mean, you think about Julian Love getting his fingers just another 2 inches out to deflect that pass to George Kittle for the touchdown in the third quarter. Or you think about DK's half a toe stepping out of bounds and not being able to haul it in there. Or Kenneth Walker being an inch away from being set instead of being in a legal, illegal shift situation where DK gets the bomb and could have scored there and changed things around. Lots of little tiny things. Now, you can also push back and say, well, I mean, it was an inch within D. Williams having the football hit his hand and they didn't get the call there. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, they weren't as far apart, I think, as you would think when you watched it live. After going back and watching, that was my kind of gut feeling there. It really does feel like they're closer than further away from being competitive with some of the top teams in the NFC.
For me with this game, it just hinged completely on the turnovers. You turned the ball over 3 times throughout the game, and the Niners didn't at all. And so with those 3 turnovers, it did lead to 12 49ers points. You lost by 12. I mean, it's no more direct than that, right? Because, yeah, okay, if you do, like you said, happen to convert in some of those places, then maybe it ultimately is more competitive. But you turned it over 3 times. You gave them 12 points. You lost by 12 points, which is weird because, like you said, it felt like in the moment, like they were kind of beating the brains out of our Seahawks.
Yeah, it felt like you're getting the break speed off of you there for a minute. But, yeah, my second point was going to be exactly what you said. It really has come down to turnovers in these last 3 games, basically. DK with the big fumble in the Detroit game. That seemed to be really the biggest difference in that game. DK with another fumble. Was that against the Giants? Yeah, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah, because they had 2 losses with 2 DK fumbles.
Right. And then Geno had his worst game of the year. He's had 5 good games and 1 bad game. So, you can take that however you'd like. I'm sure we'll get to some of that maybe with some comments later, I'm guessing. But really, we made fun of Pete Carroll constantly, in terms of him being like, it's all about the ball. And if you just win the turnover margin, you're good. And just kind of making fun of him for making it simplistic and being fixated on that stat. Old man wasn't wrong. I mean, that's really where it's at. And it does feel like a culmination of a lot of little things, a couple turnovers. And that's kind of the difference in this team being 4-2 rather than 3-3 or 5-1. And that doesn't feel unfixable. There's nothing that feels unfixable when you're going back and watching it. That's one of the things that I came away with.
Yeah, because there are moments defensively when they're able to bottle up the run. It's just they have these breakdowns, and we saw it in the game against the Niners a couple times. Well, like right at the end, too, where they had the one big breakout run play when they would have had an opportunity to maybe stop them and get the ball back, but they run it all the way down to inside the 5-yard line. And then, there was the Debo play, which was a breakout explosive score. They give up these easy plays to the opponents, it seems like, over the last couple games. And yeah, if you can cut those out, it definitely changes how things look.
You're going to be very competitive in all the games going forward. And that's all you could really ask for in this league, where the deviation between these teams is relatively small. And I didn't see a world beater in the Niners there either. And the one thing that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at these last two losses, Giants and San Francisco, there was a number of third downs where the quarterback was able to run around and pull some shit out of his ass that would get us. And Purdy did it like 3-4 times. And I'm sure we deserve it after all the times Russ did it to them. But that's one of those things where you look at it, you're like, not every quarterback we're going to face is going to have that ability to run around and make that play. Like even early in the game, Purdy runs around on a third, throws a terrible ball to Debo that's just off his fingertips. He pops it up into the air, bobbles it 3 times, and then still manages to catch it, and they convert. Early in the game, Purdy scrambles to the bottom of the screen, and Baker takes a god-awful angle and doesn't get him to the ground. You just little things like that with the mobile quarterback. That's something they're struggling with, and again, something they can work on. But I wonder, Brandon, I've been listening to Coach Mike over the last couple of days, and this question kept popping up for me, and I'm curious to your thoughts. He was saying, and I agree, that it's not just any one big thing here, one big thing there that we need to fix. It's we're kind of bad at a few little things all across the board. Does that make you feel better or worse about this team moving forward? That sort of assessment.
It is concerning when you can't just look at the leaky wall, right, and say there's a hole in it right there. You just got to plug that up and everything is good. So yeah, I guess I am more concerned about it, but I'm also a lot more willing to be patient about it, just because it is a new coaching staff. It's gonna take some time. I keep telling myself that it's not just gonna be awesome right away, and. Yeah. The thing I like about it, though, is I like the temperament of the coaching staff, because that was one of the things, right, that I had planned to watch as part of this whole new coach experience, was the resilience of the coaching staff whenever we got to some kind of difficult stretch. It came a little bit earlier than I think any of us wanted to, but here we are. We're getting to watch how the coaching staff reacts, how the players react. Shoot. We're even getting to watch how some of the fans react to how they're responding to these changes and seeing it happen in real time.
Yeah, it's been interesting. And there's no wrong way to fan, right? So everybody that's got their opinions and all that, like, it's all okay. You're just like us. We're just a couple of fans talking ball on this podcast. But I do think about like it being spread out kind of evenly among all 3 phases of the game. Little mistakes to turn into big mistakes, and really the difference in consistency, as we said Clinton and I said on the post game, the difference between bad to good and good to great teams is just levels of consistency. Sure. And maybe it's a fan problem, our expectations in terms of being like, oh my gosh, we're wigged out that it's been uneven early. Oh my goodness. Like, well, what did we expect? Brand new coaching staff, massive amount of turnover, young dudes on top of that, first time dudes in all those positions on top of that. Are we really that surprised that it's uneven, that they've been able to implement the big things and have some success with it, but haven't been able to get it dialed in to where you're doing right more often than the other team and taking care of those little things?
And that's, I think, one of the things I remind myself about, too, because it's not like we went out and got Coach Bill Belichick because we were on the verge of competing for a Super Bowl right away. we went out and we got a brand new young coaching staff, because I think, like John Schneider and Jody Allen are thinking, this is a long-term type deal. We want to do this right and try and bring in the right pieces. And so it will take some time. Now, when you look at some of the things like offensive line play and linebacking and issues where it does feel like they've had struggles for a lot of time, you wanted to see maybe some more progress there rather than regression. And it does feel like a little bit of regression in some of those areas. And I think even having a little bit of regression from Geno from the start of the season to this one game against the Niners, just because it kind of has piled up, that you see some of that frustration, then go to guys like Geno and go to guys like DK, because those are pieces where there's also some higher expectations.
Well, yeah, I think everybody in the locker room has a high expectation of what their performance should be, all the way down to, the 53rd man on the roster. So I can imagine that all the players are super frustrated when they see things going this way. Like, LaVisca being an inch away from having his knee down instead of having that being a fumble. Like, it's all just this little tiny stuff that really adds up into big stuff that's getting them. And that can be annoying. And like you're saying, when you can't, it's a little like fixing a car and you're like, oh, it keeps dying. And you're like, oh, well, it feels like fuel. I'm just going to go over here. I'll do this. I'll do that. Change the fuel filter, whatever it is. Oh, wait. Well, that kind of fixed it, but it's still doing this other thing too. Well, maybe it's electrical. And then you got to go through and shotgun approach this thing until you finally get it cleaned up. And maybe that takes 3/4 of a season. Maybe that takes till year 2. We talk about the offensive line being a problem for years and years and years. You bet. I'm more concerned of what this offensive line looks like at the end of year 2 of Schneider and Mike working together. And if there is an improvement by then, some measurable improvement, I'm not saying it needs to be perfect, but where you go, okay, you've got somebody better than Stone Forsythe, who literally is giving up the highest rate of pressures of all the right tackles and all the right tackles. We got to be able to do better than that in that area. So yes, the long-term problems, I don't expect them to be fixed short-term. That seems crazy. It seems like long-term problems take long-term solutions. Short-term problems take short-term solutions. And it's just going to take a minute. And since we committed to this new staff, then you got to roll with it. And you can't be Woody Johnson or David Tepper and have a hissy fit every time it doesn't go your way, the second it doesn't go your way, and want to blow the whole thing all up. That's not how the good teams do it in any way, shape, or form.
I do sense there's some frustration out there with the new coaching staff. So you asked me the question about it being all the little things. Does it make you feel any better, though, that similar things happened last year and Pete Carroll was asked the same types of questions? He answered it a little bit differently than I think Mike did. I think that Coach McDonald was a little bit more honest about, I don't know what's going on, because if I did, I would fix it. Whereas Pete was, he was more indirect about it, but kind of had the same answer that, yeah, all these little things are happening, and which makes it really hard to just go out there and fix it.
I didn't get the sense that Mike was like, well, I just don't know what to do. I didn't get that sense from him at all.
He didn't say, I don't know what to do, but he did say, I don't know what the problem is.
Right. He said it's not just one thing. I don't know. That's not just the problem. This is a problem. I can tell you this is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem. Whether it's tackling or angles or commitment to the run game or hit some things in his scheme or special teams having gaffes game after game here. And you go down the list, ball security, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Now, how do you fix it? Pete had been using his tricks and his methods to fix it for 13 years. And at some point, you run out of tricks and methods that you have in your toolbox. You just do. It's just how it is. So I have a lot more confidence in somebody like Mike, who's come in with a fresh toolkit to get after these things. And all you can do is take them one by one, and they're not all going to be magically fixed by the time this team steps foot on Megatron's butthole in Atlanta. Like, it's not going to all be fixed. But now with the mini bye, I think you got an opportunity to fix more of it.
One thing that I think I would like to see fixed, just from a strategic point of view, or like even a communication point of view, we've heard from Coach McDonald a lot that it's important for them to start fast. He's emphasized it a lot through this early part of the season. They want to get out there. They want to start fast. They want to get Geno going early. I would like to see that focus shift, because I've talked about how I like that approach in the past. One of the things that I guess I've come to realize by focusing too much on that starting fast approach, if you don't get there early on, then you're already looking at something that you've failed to do before the game is over. And so that part of it, I don't like very much. The other part of it that I don't like too is, I guess I would like to see that focus more around building that offensive identity that you want to have. And I don't think starting fast is really an identity.
Oh, it definitely isn't. And I know this is something you've come back to a few times, this starting fast thing, or, or Pete with the finish strong stuff or whatever. Who gives a shit about any of that? Like, just try to kick ass at every moment that you have an opportunity to kick ass. Like, I don't understand this. Well, we're going to do it fast early, or we're going to do it great late, or like whatever. Who gives a shit? Just go out there and kick as much ass as you can on every play. Like, I don't understand why there's even a different mindset.
I can see the Pete Carroll mindset is that if you're saying it's not how you start, it's how you finish, then there's always that little piece of your mind that says, oh, well, it doesn't matter how we start because we'll just go win it now. If you have that kind of as part of your culture, then you have that feeling like you're never out of it. And we had that feeling that, kind of Russ embodied that, right? And the downside to that too is that it often seems like you're just then waiting to come back. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you just need to get rid of all of it and say, hey, we're going to just go out and play. And I think that's part of it. Go out and find your identity and build around it.
I mean, if you go out on the football field and you're trying to kick ass every play and you happen to start fast and maybe, it gets away from you a little bit at the end, but you still come out with a dub, great. Like, cool. We won the football game. Let's say you go out there, you try to kick ass at the beginning of the game, every single play, and they get up on you a little bit and you manage to turn it around and come back in the fourth quarter and win it late. Cool. Great. We can do it that way too. Just be prepared to do whatever you have to do in every game, because they're all going to be different to some extent. Like, I don't think that's an identity at all. And like, when you're talking about getting to an identity offensively, I'm totally with you on that. I think one of the things that I came away with after rewatching it, especially early, I am very encouraged at the way Ryan Grubb had changed his philosophy in terms of, okay, we're going to run the ball. I want to say it was like 5 out of their first 7 plays, they ran the football. It was something like that. Mm-hmm. They ran the hell out of the ball. They didn't, and they got down and were in scoring range on their first drive, and then Geno throws a bad pick because it was a bad Geno game.
That was the worst of the picks.
That was the worst?
I do. I think that Geno pick was the worst one. He only had 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one, he kind of threw it, and I think Tyler was bracketed and trying to just fit it into where it didn't need to go. Because the other one with DK, I felt like watching back, I could see a little bit of what Geno was seeing, and that DK was out in front of the defender. And then just as soon as he threw it, the defender jumps the route and intercepts it. So I think he just saw that and thought that DK had his dude beat because DK's fast. But why did you think the other one was worse?
Oh, just the sheer point of the game. I mean, you're coming back, all the momentum's with you. Yeah, and not only that, I mean, as far as the one to Tyler, yeah, it was bracketed coverage. Can he usually fit that ball in there? Yes. Just another high throw. He was off all beginning of the game with high throws and just being off target. And I genuinely believe if Grubb takes what he did in the first half offensively in terms of play calling and marries that with an average Geno game, that offense is going to look really good. And when they finally had an opportunity to crawl back into it and take a lead late in the third, early in the fourth, they completely abandoned the run then. Like, they just went to throwing the football over the yard, and that's when the offense sputtered and stalled and couldn't get out of its own way. And if he could have just stuck with that philosophy from the first half, in the second half, I think this game looks fairly different.
I don't know at what point he really got away from it, though, because the point that I think that we all got really excited was K9 gets the 1 yard touchdown. Then the Niners, they come back, they go 3 and out. And early on in the fourth quarter, they're only down 6. That very first drive, they used Charbonnet. They ran on the first 2 plays. And then it was on the 1st and 10 where Cross got called for an ineligible downfield. That ended up just that was incomplete anyway, so they declined it. And then they ran Sharps again on 2nd and 10. That didn't go anywhere. And then 3rd and 10, they're off the field. So it's not like they got away from it. Okay, let's go back even farther, Adam, because going into halftime, I sense some frustration from you post game too. They get down to the 2 yard line. They're down 16-0. And it's like they decided that they were just going to try and get it to one of the 3 playmakers. They try it to Tyler, they try it to JSN, then they try it to DK. And that was that the play where DK just was out by just his toe? And then they end up kicking a field goal. I don't think I would have been too upset about them going for it there and trying to get the touchdown on 4th down.
It's nonsense to not go for it there. I don't get it for the life of me. You're going to tell me that they're going to stop you 4 straight times? Well, I guess maybe if you throw 3 fades in a row, maybe they'd stop you 4 straight times. But I do feel like that they had an excellent opportunity to score there. They're on the 2. It's not like they're from the 15 or something. And you're already down. I know it's technically 2 scores, 16 points, but you're de facto down 3 points. 3 scores. I mean, getting 2 points is unlikely. No. It's just, it's very unlikely. So at the end of the day, yeah, I think that you do go for it there. They talk all the time about how they want to be aggressive in all of that. And I've seen them be aggressive at times where I'm like, that's weird. And then a time like that where I think it's painfully obvious, because what's the difference if you're down 16-0 or 16-3 at half?
Yeah, it doesn't make that much difference other than just the idea of wanting to put points on the board, which I feel like is more of the old school style coaching. Oh, well, we don't want to get shut out, so we better just get points on the board just so we can feel good going into halftime.
Look, if it was 12-0, sure, kick the field goal. But 16-17-0, no, you go for the touchdown 2 there. Yeah, I don't know. It did bother me. That was my biggest coaching moment from the game that bothered me, was just that right there. Go for it on 4th.
So they come out of the half, then the Niners drive. They get up 23-3, and then LaVisca, we get a kickoff return. See, DJ Dallas isn't the only guy who can return a kickoff in the NFL this year.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, the second one all year, and a makeup for the fumbled kickoff there, and that was nice to see. I think LaVisca's been great as a kickoff returner. I'd rather see somebody other than D. Williams back there with him, and I'd rather see somebody who could at least catch the ball on punts. Like, I'm tired of the D. Williams circus. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. Going back to your point, though, about Grubb, yeah, I think we did see some movement toward balance from the previous game to this game, and I appreciated that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I thought was important is, Ken Walker didn't average a huge amount in terms of yards per carry in this last game. But what he did do is he got 2 to 4 yards every single time he touched the football. And there's a massive difference between 2nd and 7 and 2nd and 10 when you're calling up plays. It just sets you up. I know it doesn't as a fan, it's like, oh, okay, great. Well, there's a run. He got 2 or 3. Great. Okay, cool. Next play. Like, that's actually a huge deal to get that 2-3 yards. Now, if you can make it more like 3-4 yards every time, you're really cooking. But I think it's really important for them to do that. The problem is that he hasn't yet figured out how to marry getting to the run game and then using play action appropriately with that to really make it difficult on the defense. I want to say the Seahawks are dead last in play action percentage in the league, or at least bottom 5. Like, they just don't do it. It's all drop back or hand the ball off. And I feel like you take a lot of the mystery of what you can run as an offense away when you don't utilize that, and it makes it easier on the defense.
They have some really nice and well-designed running plays too. And I think that's, again, part of the reason why I am a little bit more patient, because this is like a first-time NFL play caller type thing, trying to see what works, what might work off of what they're able to get working, what's best for the type of players that you even have on the field. Yeah, I keep going back to the Giants game was frustrating, especially, and it's frustrating to keep losing to the Niners, but I did sense that through a lot of the comments that we saw too.
Well, of course. And you should be frustrated. Like I said, there's no wrong way to fan, and I get the frustration. Also, too, you got to look at it and think, all right, are we growing here as a football team? Like, sometimes growth happens. In fact, most often you get the most growth as a player or a person or anything in your life at the harder times through the adversity. And they're getting a little bit of a dose of that now. And they're 500. It's not like they're 1-5. I take where we are as a franchise right now with this coaching staff, 6 days a week over top of where the Cardinals are at, right? And they've had some bigger wins. They just beat the 49ers.
Sure.
But they feel like they're way further away from being a week in, week out competitive football team compared to the Seahawks.
Well, and part of that too is just ownership and organizationally in a better spot.
Yeah.
I did want to get to some of the comments, though, because we had a lot of good comments in the Facebook group this past week. We had some interesting comments out on YouTube as well and wanted to bring those in. Amy out on Facebook said, X's and O's, I think Mike McDonald has it in the bag, but he doesn't know how to emotionally support the players, which was Pete's obvious strength, and doesn't seem to have anyone on staff who does. The emotional side of this is getting a bit out of control. Geno and DK need to get it under control. I honestly don't think we have the horses to do this yet in most areas, not just the trenches, but the part about rallying your players can't be ignored. It just can't be left up to the players because it's clearly not working. And I think what Amy's referencing is, we saw on the sidelines, like, obvious frustration, and whether or not that was the 3 games in 11 days type thing, or just, getting frustrated emotionally and showing it on the sidelines. I think that was picked up by a lot of people this past week.
I've heard a lot about that. And I don't think Amy's wrong in any stretch that doesn't seem to be Mike's go-to place. Like, that's not his forte, is getting up in people's feels and getting it figured out for him. I don't think that's where he comes from at all. These are grown-ass men, and they should be able to figure it out themselves. Like, I don't think that's something he should be in charge of, but you probably are as the leader of the football team, and that's fine, I guess. I guess overall, the hand-wringing over how somebody sits on the bench or what facial expression they have, or Geno wanting to, put his head through a tablet because he's frustrated that he's playing poorly. Like, oh my stars, did it give everybody the vapors? Like, yeah, they care. They care, and they're pissed off that it's not working. Like, if they walked around laughing, and like a lot of what was happening at the end of last year, where guys seemed to be like, we lost. Oh, well, let's have a cigar in the locker room, whatever. That bothers me way more than guys being frustrated and upset on the sideline. Like, what are we complaining about?
Yeah, I want those guys to be as miserable about losing as I am.
Is he not miserable sitting on the bench pissed off? Does that not look like complete misery to you? It looks like it to me. Doesn't look like he's sitting on the bench being like, I wonder what I'm doing Tuesday. I guess maybe I'll go to the beach. I don't know. Like, that's not what's going through their heads. You can tell it. You can see the gears spinning. These guys are frustrated. That's what I want.
Jalen of the Facebook group said, last night we missed Bobby and Quandre. The defense is flat, no energy, no spark. They looked afraid to make a play. So this is switching over to the defensive side. If I'm John, I'm figuring out a way to bring Max Crosby onto the football team. Ryan Grubb has potential, but needs to be better. Max Crosby. We saw the Jets get Devontae Adams from the Raiders. Can we siphon off another one of their good players?
Yeah, probably not that one. What do you think about?
Speaking of people on the sidelines, Max Crosby, who is he pushing in the past game? One of the coaches?
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch Raiders because I've got things to do with my life. But I did see that he did go up to the line of scrimmage playing the Broncos and scream at Bo Nix, "You got to speak up. Nobody knows what the hell's going on." And like was bullying Bo Nix at the line. That was kind of fun. But I'm curious to know your thoughts, Brendan, on whether you think Bobby or Quandre like still had the juice in the locker room to bring energy to the locker room and kind of rally guys like they clearly kind of need right now on the defensive side.
That's interesting. One of the things I feel like I kind of miss from last year, but also kind of not. Witherspoon was involved in enough plays to where like we almost last year he'd get up and celebrate a play that was like, you don't really need to be celebrating that hard, but they don't really have anybody that juices up the defense, I feel like, in terms of making a big play and celebrating it in that same way that we saw from Spoon. Now, we're seeing Spoon use more in coverage. I feel like he really, I think Purdy only threw his direction one time in this past game. So he was locking down and playing a significant role. It's just not that same role that we saw last year, or maybe even the role that we might have expected McDonald to use him in more to this point in the season. And that is in that role where he's around the ball a lot, mixing it up. And that's why I think it feels a little bit devoid of that energy that Jalen's talking about.
I do agree on the topic of it does feel a little lifeless defensively in terms of energy. Not that the guys aren't playing hard in that sort of thing. I think they are. Like that shows up on the tape, but you know, kind of to the Spoon aspect of it. Yeah, I think all of us kind of speculated he's going to be kind of the Kyle Hamilton type, and it seems as if Julian Love is more the Kyle Hamilton type, that they're kind of getting involved with the ball. We see Julian Love around the ball way more than we do Spoon right now. I think really the energy end of it, if this would be a total guess, I have no proof of this. You guys can poo-poo it if you want. That's fine. I feel like they're out there in comparison to week 1 or 2, since they've been making mistakes and Mike's scheme is relatively complicated in all of that. I feel like I'm watching guys thinking way too hard out there. And it's really hard to bring energy and play with emotion and all that when you're constantly calculating and breaking down all the little things that you need to be doing, or the communication here and what didn't happen there and what gap am I supposed to jump here, and you know what happens when I see this formation. And I think Mike's put a lot on their plate, and rightfully so. They're NFL players, get it right. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're playing as fast. They have all the effort. I don't think they're playing as fast or with the same kind of emotion, because it is complicated and they're overthinking.
The good part about that, though, is that they are continuing to get good pressure on the quarterback. I think I saw that even in this past game against the Niners, they had a 50% pressure rate on Brock, which, yeah, against Purdy, who this year has kind of been able to turn being under pressure into making plays for the Niners, which I don't feel like is something that he did as much in years previous. I think we're going to start to see that pressure working more against some of these teams coming up. I feel like, yeah, it should have worked against the Giants, and 49ers maybe not so much. We saw how that ended up working out, but again, we point back to the turnovers. I think just by the fact that we're consistently seeing good pressure it's going to pay off.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that was one of the things where I'm like, all right, it doesn't feel like they're getting to the quarterback a ton, and I don't think they're finishing it off in terms of sacks, that's for sure. But I want to say they're 7th in pressure rate of all the defense in the league. It's at least top 10.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging because at some point those things are going to pay off, and you're not going to be playing a guy that has good wheels as Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy. Now you'll say, look, I mean, one of the teams in the loss was to Jared Goff, and he can't move to save his life, but they still tricked the Seahawks with the fake pass or the wide receiver pass. Yeah. And of course, Amon-Ra throws like probably the best ball he's thrown in all the times they practice that play too. Like, it's just super annoying on top of that.
And against, it didn't help either that we had whatever stone-footed dude, third string edge rusher out there on that play either.
Gibson. Yeah, it was Gibson. I mean, he was running hard after him. I'll give him that.
He recognized it in plenty of time. He just didn't have the speed to get out there in time.
Right. Exactly. And, one of those quarterbacks that doesn't have the wheels that we do get to see here is going to be Kirk Cousins. Again, down playing underneath Megatron's butthole. So it's going to be fun.
You love that nickname for the stadium, don't you?
I needed to get it in the pod at least twice because I can't stand the Falcons. I can't stand their fans. I can't stand their team. Just everything about that franchise is lackluster to me.
I do worry that you might be setting yourself up, though, for more frustration because the Falcons are kind of hitting a hot streak. They've won 3 in a row. Our Seahawks lost 3 in a row. They feel like their running game is really starting to click. We saw Tyler Algier against the Carolina Panthers. After watching this past game with the Falcons and the Panthers, I had to keep telling myself, yes, this is the Falcons, though. And they're playing a Panthers team that is like one of the worst defenses. So as good as it might look, I have to remind myself that this is the Panthers we're talking about.
It is the Panthers. They're a bad football team. And if you go back and watch that game, Panthers were in that game going into the fourth quarter. It's not like they were beating the brakes off of them the way that the score indicates. Like the Panthers were hanging all game. Dalton moved the ball on them. Chuba was able to get downhill at times. This Falcons team, their point differential is like, I think they're winning by an average of 6 points. You say that they're hot. Okay. They've been sneaking out some close wins, and those things always come back to the mean, no doubt about it. And offensively speaking, they are an extremely one-dimensional team, which is surprising when you think about the combination of Algier and Bijan. Like, this is the best running back duo that we'll have faced all year. And yet I am more confident about facing them in their anemic running game that has been present all year than I have been against any of these other teams. Take and give me an immobile, coming off an Achilles, Kirk Cousins led offense where he's dropping back to pass almost every play, and a Seahawks team that's 7th in the league in pressure rate. Yeah, I'll take that all day. And I don't think that their receivers are miles better than the coverage guys that we have out there. I don't know that Reek's going to be there, but I still like what the Seahawks have going on in the secondary and really in pass defense as a whole.
It's not the pass defense really that I'm worried about, though. It is that idea that they're going to continue to keep their foot on the gas with the run game after what happened in Carolina, because this is the same type of running style that the Seahawks have been frustrated by for 3 weeks now. If they're able to give up those power runs to Algier, who he wasn't going down in so many situations. So if tackling continues to be an issue, Algier is going to be a problem. And you talk about running back duo. To me, it's not all that much different than what we saw with the Lions with Montgomery and Gibbs.
Yeah, I could see that. Only the offensive line isn't nearly as good, and they're not committed to running the football. I don't know why that after one game they're magically going to change their entire offensive philosophy and be this power running team. And I do think that it's a massive tell when they switch between the backs. When it's Algier, it's generally between the tackles. When it's Bijan, it's generally an outside run. And that's something that you can look at right there. And look, I think that the Seahawks can take advantage of this Falcons defense specifically because they're not great against the pass. They are dead last in the league at getting after the quarterback. And we all know, and the stats back it up, when Geno's clean, it's a long day for the opposing defense. I'm really optimistic for this game. Having 10 days for Mike to sit down, start to sort some of this stuff out after the whirlwind that just went by here over the last, 3 games in 11 days. They're going to be able to get a few things sorted. Some of the things that the Falcons do really poorly work really well into our biggest strengths as a football team. And this Falcons team, you talk about frauds or real contenders. These guys are frauds. They are absolute frauds. I don't buy their defense for 1 second. And honestly, they should get more out of the running game, and they don't. And I'm afraid of Drake London. And that's it. Like, there's nobody else that scares me on that team.
Drake London's good. I do have a little bit of concern about Kyle Pitts, though, because I think he would be a mismatch against our linebackers. And they really haven't found a way to consistently use Pitts well. So I guess that's the optimistic part in me that says, well, if they haven't figured it out to this point, then are they really going to figure it out against our Seahawks? If they find a way to make that mismatch work and they get the run game going, that's the part that concerns me. Like you said, though, not able to get a ton of pressure, which is really what has led Geno to have the bigger problems in the passing game. But they do have some dudes on the back end with Justin Simmons, with Jesse Bates, and AJ Terrell, too. They have the pieces in the secondary to be very opportunistic, and I think that's where their defense, to this point in the season, Atlanta Falcons fans are very disturbed by this bend but don't break style that they've been able to manage to this point. And there's a reason why they should be concerned, because it's not sustainable, but they found a way to make it work. And gosh, you can point to a lot of these games too. Even against the Chiefs, they didn't lose by much. If their defense finds a way to make 1 or 2 stops in both the Steelers game and the Chiefs game, as a Falcons fan, I could say, shoot, this team should be undefeated to this point. But like you said, too, there's those same opportunities on the other end where it does feel a little bit fraudulent for this team to where, yeah, okay, they could be undefeated, but they could also be a 2-win team.
Oh, 100%. And look, I do like the safety combo. I think those two are fantastic football players. But one of the things that, we've come back to this multiple times this season, Brandon. Does a great secondary make a great pass rush, or does a great pass rush make a great secondary? Like, if you don't have any sort of pass rush and your defensive line can't get after the quarterback, I don't care if you have Deion Sanders, Ed Reed, Jack Tatum, take all the all-time greats and throw them back there. You're going to get passed on. You're going to get passed on if you don't get.
But they have Grady Jarrett and we have Stone Forsythe.
Cool. What has Grady Jarrett done to this point in the season? He's old.
What does he do every time? He looks terrible for most of the season, and then against the Seahawks and a guy like Stone Forsythe, he'll have the game of his life.
It's a new era. I'm not letting some of those old things haunt my thinking when it comes into this game. And I think in the passing game specifically for the Seahawks, yeah, we mentioned the safeties. They're good players. I don't think you're going to get a bunch of DK bombs in this game, but I do think that you can tear them up over the middle part of the field, especially their linebackers. And that's something that Geno really does do very well. And I just think they're going to have a massive day. This is a big JSN day to me.
Maybe we can get Tyler involved in there too. I would like to see DK used less as the down the field, bomb it out to the sideline type role anyway. I would like to see him use more slants and get him going up against corners and linebackers over the middle, because if we're looking for ways for our team to be physical, then sending DK on those slants toward the middle of the field to where he's bowling dudes over. Yes, I understand it creates opportunities for fumbles and turnovers, and that's where we got into issues before, but I think you can clean those up, and I think you can establish some physicality that way.
I think so too. And to your point, I saw this on the NFL Pro. They had this little nugget here. 212 of DK's 469 yards and both of his 2 touchdowns have been on go routes. And that is the most yards gained by any player on a single route this season. Like, so it does speak to exactly what you're saying. And so to me, that does mean that if NFL Pro is putting that out there for us, football nerds that don't have any influence in the NFL, like, the coaches know that. So that to me is something that you can set up and work those inside routes and things like that. Be a tendency breaker and really do get the offense going that way. And if they can get the ball to Ken Walker the way that they did in the last game.
For DK, it's the ones I think that we've seen him beat the defense on have been the ones where he goes inside as if it were a slant and does the double move to where he goes more down the middle than he does down the sideline.
Yeah, it's been a plethora of different ways they've gotten to it. But yeah, you can, if you have one thing that you do really well and you're great at, you can really work off of that to open things up for you in all the other areas of the field. So yeah, I think there's more that you can get to at DK. And I do like the way that Grubb has been running the pass game for the most part, short of just not using enough play action. And I think this is the type of game where you can sit in the drop back game. Geno can sit there, survey the field. Again, I don't care if you have 4 Hall of Famers back there. You're not covering DK, JSN, and Tyler Lockett when Geno can hold the ball for 3 seconds in the pocket and just make a comfortable throw every time. You're not going to do it.
Yeah, they have to give him a little bit more time. They also need to run the football. Defensively, the Falcons ranked 25th against the rush, and with the Seahawks ranked 29th in the league at actually running the ball. I think this is an opportunity to even things out a little bit.
Basically what you're doing is these two teams are fairly mirrors of each other to this point in the season. Like, both survive off their pass game. Both have talented running backs, but don't get it to them enough. Both have defenses that struggle to stop the run. Both have defenses that are better against the pass. So
to that point, okay, let me read these statistics off to you, Adam. Seahawks offense in yards, 7th, 373. The Falcons offense, 8th at 368. Neck and neck.
Is that total yards per game?
This is total yards per game.
Okay.
And like you said, how they're getting it through the air. Seahawks are first, almost 300 yards per game. The Falcons, 266 yards per game through the air. And they're slightly more balanced, but 21st in rushing yards. We're 29th, as I mentioned. And then points, they're 11th, we're 13th. So offensively, almost mirror images.
Absolutely. And I like our strength in the passing game offensively more than I like the strength of the Falcons passing game. And I think ultimately this could be a bit of a shootout. I think this is going to be a big day for Geno. He generally bounces back after a bad game. Mike's had 10 days to kind of cull through some things and try to get a handle on, the top 3 of the many little problems that will have the biggest impact towards winning. I think it's easier to clean up turnovers in many ways than some of the other stuff, because it is one of the more volatile things in the league. It's something that it's not like, oh, well, they're going to turn the ball over 1 to 3 times a game, every single game. Like, that's something that comes and goes and kind of fits. And I have a feeling deep down that this is one of those games that kind of shocks everybody around the league. Seahawks are 3-point dogs. And they're like, oh, wow, look, the Seahawks came back and really bounced back and had a huge game. I think this is a huge opportunity for them because it does play into some of their strengths.
Yeah, and we'll get into this when we go through our picks on Thursday night, but 88% are with the Falcons in this game, Adam.
I can't wait for 88% of the picking population to be wholly disappointed.
Leaves 12% of us. That feels just right going for our team.
I'm telling you, dude, this is all lining up. This is going to be a big game for the Seahawks. I think we're going to all come back here after this game and feel a heck of a lot better about this team and where they're going forward.
Well, that's good because I'm ready for it. I'm ready to get back into the win column because there are some tough matchups coming up with the Buffalo Bills coming to town, looking ahead to the LA Rams. And then we got other divisional matchups, the second one with the Niners and then the first one with the Cardinals. So a lot can hinge on this game, and moving forward, it would be a good springing off point to get right back into the win column going out east and then coming home for a nice stretch of games.
Absolutely. I think you need to get this one against a so-so Falcon team. I think you need to get that one against a bad Rams team. I think the Buffalo game is going to be tough. Josh Allen is a god, and he plays football as well as anybody else in this league, and he scares.
Now he has Amari Cooper.
Oh, I don't give a shit about that. Amari who?
Well, he's got at least a competent receiver languishing on the Browns.
Shakur's better than he is.
Sure, but it's another option. I worry about it. You're telling me that when we go into this Bills game that you're not going to be at all concerned the fact that they have more of a big-bodied receiver than the dudes that they had.
No. Amari Cooper hasn't been good in like 4 years.
Because he's been on the Browns.
Why did he end up on the Browns?
Because he's not very good.
There it is. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the second half of the show. As we get into the second half of the show, one thing we didn't really touch on was injuries. And unfortunately, we saw Artie Burns return to the team only to go out to IR in this game with a foot injury. Uchenna Nwosu back on the IR. I think maybe we had talked about that before. Had we? I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but just, man, snake bitten this year for Uchenna.
That's a bummer because we could really use him.
Yeah. We talk about having a high pressure rate, but not feeling like we're getting home as much as we should. Chenna's one of those dudes that makes a difference in that sort of area.
Yeah. Able to set the edge well in the run game as well. It does seem like we get beat to the outside more than we should, but we also see a lot of those big runs too coming inside the tackles. So I wonder if you were to chart it out where we're getting beat the worst in the run game. Is it between the tackles? Probably. That feels right.
Well, let's see here. I can help to answer that question.
Does the handy dandy NFL.com stats have that broken down for us?
I really like this new tool, Brandon. And it helps me sound like less of a tool, which is hard to do. And I do appreciate it. We are, according to NFL.com, the pro, it says that in terms of success rate for rushing outside the tackles as a defense, we are 24th in the league. In rushing inside the tackles, we are 19th in the league.
Oh, so worse outside. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not where we want to be really in either spot.
We're really, really bad if we have a light box out on the field. 7 or fewer defenders up front, or fewer than 7 defenders up front. We are 31st in the league in run defense.
No light boxes.
Or at least play with a neutral box. Yep. 7 guys at the very least.
That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
That feels like something that Mike could work with.
This is all stuff. And I think with the extra time, like there was no way he was going to fix any of the problems between, the Giants game and the Niners game. I mean, that happened in a hurry. And I think you just kind of get through that one. It sucks it ended up being a loss, but I think that's going to be more of the outlier than the real DNA of this team when we look at this at the end of the year.
Well, there were a couple other comments that I wanted to get to that I didn't mention in the first half of the show. We had Arcade Belmont 1138. This was out on YouTube. Said, think about this. San Francisco played without their top cornerback and safety. Geno threw a pick to their backups. Both are rookies. And San Francisco got down to their 4th string running back, and he iced the game with that big run at the end. Pretty much the Niners rookie class owned the Seahawks.
Those were bad balls from Geno more than great plays from the DBs. So it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh my gosh, like look at the talent they have at corner there that really got us. That those were just really poor throws from Geno. In terms of the running back thing, it feels like you could throw, my grandmother back there and she's going to get yards against this defense right now on the ground, but we'll see how it goes this upcoming week.
We've got Guru J8827 out on YouTube saying, you guys never talk about how our starting quarterback is 22-21 as a Seahawk, 0-4 to San Fran, 6-6 in the division, with 4 of those wins coming against Arizona. Not to mention he didn't use his legs one single time in collapsing pockets last game. His rating is down on trend in all stats since 22. Why not just be competitive this year, but let the young players feast and build a team from the ground up? Put Howell in. Catfish! We lost to Danny Dimes with our all-star quarterback, LOL. For years, you guys always talk about yards don't matter, but hype Geno's passing yards. Come on.
I never hype Geno's passing yards. Never.
I haven't either. When have we hyped Geno's other than maybe jokingly hyping his passing yards as if like we're celebrating the fact that he's the first in the league right now, which that is very much a sarcastic celebration.
Right. And look, of all those stats that he rattled off there, the one that really does make me, have a little pause, and I think a legit one, is his record against the Niners. He's looked terrible against the Niners, like week in, week out, every time he's played them, no doubt. But with that said, if you go back and watch every one of those Niners games, I would challenge you to go back and watch any one of them and go, yep, Geno's the problem here. Like, that's the guy that's really not getting it done. Honestly, man, for all the fans that try to pin a lot of this on Geno as a whole, and you can pin some of it, a good part of it on this last game on him, no doubt. Won in, again, 6 games. And not only that, but if you've watched Sam Howell throughout his entire career and go, oh, yeah, that guy is definitely better. Again, I don't know what you're watching. Like, you find new eyeballs.
Well, I don't necessarily expect people to have watched a ton of Sam Howell just because then you'd have to go back and watch Commanders football, which other than our friend Barry the Commander, like, why would you want to do that? Maybe this year it would give you a little bit more reason to go and watch them because they're actually kind of an exciting and fun team now that they have Jaden Daniels. But the interesting thing is that Jaden Daniels and Sam Howell, they played behind the exact same offensive line. Like the only difference in the Washington offensive line from last year to this year is their left guard. They at least have an average offensive line. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Howell, last season, behind an average and maybe even a good offensive line, he dropped back 70% of the time to pass. So part of this also depends on a little bit of the difference in scheme that can make on the offensive line, which it goes back to the idea of where we are talking about more balance, because that Washington offense, not balanced last year, 70% to 30% pass to run ratio, 712 dropbacks last year for Sam Howell. He led the league in attempts at 612. He led the league in sacks at 65. Yes, part of that is they hadn't dropped back a whole lot, but 65 sacks, it was him, Bryce Young, and then the next dudes were in the 40s. So 60 is a crazy amount to be sacked behind a pretty good offensive line. If you put Sam Howell behind this Seahawks offensive line, he's going to break that record.
By a lot. And for one very specific reason, Geno is a quick processor. And we've watched him get the ball out of his hands very quickly this entire season. And Sam Howell is one of the slower processors of the top 64 quarterbacks in the league. And that's why he takes a zillion freaking sacks. One of the big reasons Jaden Daniels has been successful over there in Washington, of course, there's a difference between Bieniemy and Kingsbury, but both kind of pass happy guys at the end of the day. Daniels takes the snap, and he is decisive right now. Like, if the ball's out of his hands or he's moving. Sam Howell cannot, will not, has never done that. Sam Howell will never be the future of the Seattle Seahawks. Ever. put that down in the Mount Rushmore of my predictions. He is not the future in any way, shape, or form.
He also led in interceptions last year with 21. And I'm not even necessarily willing. I'm just throwing that out there as a stat, but also mostly to compare and contrast to Geno. If we expect him to drop back and throw 70 times, he's probably going to have 20 interceptions this season.
Oh, yeah. And look, Geno has thrown too many interceptions this year. There's no doubt about it. You can't hide behind that. Some of them have been fluky, but this last game, those were two really bad picks. Those were really bad on the quarterback interceptions. There's no two ways about it.
That's why you don't throw the ball 50 times in a game.
What?
That's why I'd prefer not to, at least.
Yeah, sorry. I probably came across a little harsh against the commenter there. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm really tired of the Geno slander because it really comes from, like, have you seen the guy stand back there and throw dimes when freaking Nick Bosa is a free rusher at his face, play after play after play? Like, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, and the idea that we're these huge Geno stands, too, when we did an entire offseason series of the quarterbacks coming out of the 2024 draft who we would rather have over Geno because we had a relatively high pick. And so we're looking at quarterbacks and guys who could potentially be the future of the team. So it's not like we said, oh, we're good at quarterback going into this year. We're just going to ride with Geno. No, we actually broke it down and looked at those guys because it was going to be a pretty historic draft class. And it's seemingly playing out that way. Of course, all those quarterbacks ended up getting drafted before the Seahawks had an opportunity to pick. And, we'll have to see where they end up draft wise going forward. But I don't think it's going to be that same type of quarterback class like we saw last year. Again, for at least a few years. And
look, I said it at the time when we went through the rookies. You can go through all of the first round quarterbacks, except for, in my opinion, maybe Penix, that I'd be like, yep, I'd take that dude over Geno. And it's only because Penix is even more limited than Geno in terms of mobility. Geno does not get the love for his legs like what he's doing. He picked up a bunch of critical yards in the last game with his legs. He gets himself out of pressure all the time. His pocket presence is fantastic. Like, you want to get rid of Geno, that's okay. Like, because you can't just shake that he was a failure with the Jets. If you can't get that out of your head and you can't move on, I guess that's you problem. But at the end of the day, he's not the same player. And if you're going to say replace Geno, then give me a legit better option. Don't come at me with Sam Howell. Right. Like, it's so clear.
Well, just because you're saying, well, Sam Howell threw for a lot of yards in Washington. Yeah, it's because they threw the crap out of the football.
And Geno doesn't have like 3 uncorkers a game.
And they won, 5 games? If you're going to bring up the win-loss record of Geno at 22 and 21, why are we not bringing up Sam Howell's win-loss record as a Washington quarterback?
Well, okay. Yeah, there's that too. I mean, during Geno's time as the starting quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, has the defense in any one of those seasons been above 25th in the league?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. And if that's the case, like, again, I don't care if you have freaking Tom Brady, you're not going to win many games back there.
Also, we've got Michael Paul on our Facebook group saying, I've reached the point with this team that I no longer expect to win. I just hope they win. It's a much less stressful way to watch with zero expectations since they keep underperforming week after week. I know it's a process, but I'm pinning my hopes on next year already.
I get it with Michael Paul. Like, maybe that's how I came into this year as a whole, and maybe why I didn't freak out quite as much about 3 losses in a row as maybe some other fans. And again, there's no wrong way to fan that way. But yeah, for me, just like, all right, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be up and down. And, do I want them to win? Yeah. Am I frustrated when they lose? Sure. But I just didn't see this as being like a direct path to awesomeness. Like, there's a lot of people that felt like you get rid of Pete and we're an NFC championship team like every year. And it just didn't seem like that would be the case to me.
I think that as much as we had those ideas of managing our expectations going into the season, when you win 3 games, then you start, it kind of flips that switch in your mind and you start thinking about, oh yeah, well, teams that go 3-0, they generally make the playoffs. That could be us. Maybe this is the one time that things just go great this season. And yeah, McDonald has it figured out. And yeah, he's made some mistakes, but we've worked through the mistakes and still gotten wins. So it's funny how 3 games can make you flip that way. And then 3 losses going the other way can make you flip back.
Oh, for sure. And look, I mean, why wouldn't you be excited after 3 games for the most part? Well, for me, it was like, ooh, that offense, that's not going to work long term. And ooh, that defense can't really stop anybody on the ground, and we haven't faced a real quarterback yet. So I guess we'll see. So I was guardedly optimistic after those 3 games, but I could totally see how people could get a little extra excited and then have their feelings a little hurt after the last 3 games. I understand.
You're describing me right now. You're describing me perfectly.
All right. Well, there you go. I get it.
I was that guy. I got excited. I'm back down to earth, trying to bring my expectations back to where we were going into the season. It's fine. I'm dealing with it.
Anywhere from what did we say, 6 to 11 win team? That was our prediction this year. Like, good luck.
We're still on pace for being in that range.
I think we are. Yeah, I like our prediction a lot. See, just make it a wide variance, and then you're always right.
Well, the people who are always right, it's our members of the flock who went to getintheflock.com. They're helping to support the show. $3 and above gets you into our Discord chat where we are chatting up each other during the game on game day. Also throughout the week, talking about things that happen in other games, things that happen transaction-wise for our Seahawks. It's all football all the time in our Discord.
Oh, yeah. Nothing outside of football at all.
No, definitely all football. And our executive producers, also about ball, DCH, Brian Shaw, Ryan Peterson, our live executive producer out on YouTube, JC Schilling in the 313th, and of course, Brian Lowry.
Man, what an amazing group of dudes. And look, I bet you they didn't get too high after 3 wins, and I bet you they didn't get too low after 3 losses. I bet you they're all just right there because you can't be an executive producer without being able to kind of chart a steady course for the ship.
I don't know. How's DCH doing? Is he weathering this storm just fine?
You're frustrated, but kind of like, yeah, well, it kind of is what it is. Like,
Rick Edgar, not frustrated with us. He has given us a raise, Adam, from $36 a year up to the $5 a month level, $60. A big thanks to Rick.
Hey, man, appreciate that a ton, Rick. I wonder if that was because he was extra excited about the addition of Roy Robertson Harris, Brandon. Like, was that it? Is that right? The fixer of defenses?
The 31-year-old defensive tackle that I'd never heard of until we traded a 6th-round pick for him. And by we, I mean John Schneider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that move the needle for you at all? That we're not making trades for depth along the offensive line at this point. We're just bringing in more dudes in the middle. Like, where's Cam Young? We haven't seen him out there for a whole lot of snaps. And here we are bringing in a Jaguars interior defensive lineman because they're so great on defense.
I think what frustrates me about it is it's another kind of Draymond Jones type, not really a big in the middle kind of guy, like more of but not an edge dude either. Like that Mike Moe, Draymond Jones, now Roy Robertson Harris body type of that kind of tweener lineman. And then the second thing that frustrated me about the move is he doesn't play tackle. If he played left tackle or right tackle, I'd be a lot happier. Like that would be way more exciting.
Yeah, well, you said he didn't play tackle. I thought you meant even defensively, but he doesn't play.
I had to clarify.
Right tackle on the offense. Yeah,
that part hurt my feelings. Yeah.
The other part that hurt my feelings was I saw them posting some research in the Seahawks Nest Discord. Another one of our friends in the podcasting space. I'm also in their Discord too. And they pulled out the research that he has 17 tackles and 10 missed tackles.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
No, not ideal
and
at
no
all.
one more as a pass defender than he is a run defender on top of that. The PFF, you look at his overall grade, delightfully average at 54.5. Just another guy.
And I think that was
another
last season, because I think it was 17 tackles and 600 snaps played.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How many tackles are you really getting as a defensive lineman? I don't know how that ranks. Interesting.
Yeah. It was more of the tackle to missed tackle ratio, I think, that was the more concerning part. But, well, either way. I
don't know what year this is for. This is just his overall thing. And for 24, he is ranked 98th in the league in solo tackles.
All right. 98th at his position?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's less than ideal.
But it was only a 6th round pick. So, all right.
Future Richard Sherman. We're not getting him in 2026.
Well, speaking of a bunch of people who didn't pan out well with the team, Chris Barnhart, Adam, he sent along a note and some swag for giveaways. Sent a note for you and a piece of gear. Before I get to the people who never really made the team for the Seahawks, I have to hold this up for you, Adam. It's a Seahawks logo.
Yeah.
And one of those neck chains, like you would, it's like a Flava Flav necklace.
Yeah, boy.
But on this, you might not be able to see it, but it is a signature from Mr. Will Dissly, I believe.
Hey, all right. Yeah, man. The Montana kid right there. I love it.
So yeah, that's really cool. This is from Chris. Says, for Adam, got this at the Rams game in LA last year. I immediately thought of my good buddy and Montana Seahawker. Sorry it took a year to send it. Just following Brandon's lead on pick'em prizes.
Yeah.
If you guys,
that's our speed.
If you guys ever want to go to a game in Seattle, let me know. I have 2 seats behind the visitors bench. Perfect for talking. Go Hawks from Chris.
Ooh, that could be awfully fun, Chris. Yeah, which team would I like to talk the most, Brandon? What would it be for you?
Niners, obviously.
Is it?
Well, it's kind of late for that now this year, but who else coming up? Rams? Oh, he can heckle McVay?
Yeah, in his hair gel? Yeah, all of it. I think Rams would be up there. It doesn't even have to be this year, Brandon. Like, what team overall? Like, yeah.
If Russ were to come back with whatever new team that he's on after the season, that might be interesting. Not that I'd necessarily like to heckle Russ. But the Broncos, speaking of Sean's that you'd like to heckle. Yeah, all the Sean's, head coaching Sean's, heckle them.
I would say that the Dolphins would be right up there for me.
For you, especially.
Yeah, and the Falcons, too. Like,
Okay, your sports hate teams. Sure.
Yes, absolutely. Because I've got a lot loaded up and ready to go for them.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, the Broncos game then would be pretty perfect for that. Then, because you could bring Jared and you could heckle his players just right in front of him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And because I heckle him all the time, like, again, I've got a large repertoire of insults to hurl out. Yeah. And hopefully keep them right beyond or right inside of the line that somebody doesn't want to come over the stands and assert their physical dominance, which they undoubtedly have.
Yeah, unless maybe their team has an Eric Kennedy, too, that can hold them back.
Yeah, man. Well, nobody else has an EK. Come on.
So Chris Barnhart sent along 4 jerseys, player-worn jerseys.
Smokes.
Yeah, he said he got them through one of the auctions a few years ago. We've got one of them's number 47, Eric Pinkins. I don't know if you remember Eric Pinkins. But
vaguely, yeah.
Linebacker out of San Diego State. So, maybe if you're like Michael Paul and a fan of a team, I feel like apart from the Facebook group, I did read Michael's message earlier. I feel like Michael doesn't check in as much after Rashad Penny left.
Oh, no. I mean, that was his dude in the clubhouse. We all pick players to hitch our wagons to or to not to, and Michael didn't make a good choice. I feel bad for him.
It was a better choice than Pinkins, who did not last that long. But we do have a Pinkins jersey. We also have a Williams jersey, number 90, and I had to wonder, this has got to be Jesse Williams then.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it wasn't his fault. He just had old knee.
Yeah, I know. It makes me think about Abe Lucas every time I also think about Jesse Williams.
Yes, 100%.
Which, if you're an Aussie or an Alabama fan, might be a cool jersey to have.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's fun. Okay.
We got former Huskies fullback Jonathan Amosa, number 44.
I do not remember that human at all.
I don't remember either, but I do remember running back Zach Brooks out of Clemson, number 32.
Okay.
He was a 7th-round pick for the Seahawks years and years ago. He never played, but
interesting.
I do remember that draft.
Wow. Good by you.
So we could either give these jerseys away whole, or we can bring back tiny pieces of Seahawks stuff and cut them up and divvy them out individually. Well,
what did Chris think? Did Chris think that...
He just said we could do with them what we want to. We could do them as pick 'em prizes, or I'm just throwing it out there.
Cool.
It feels... Okay, so because I got those pants a while back, and I was going to cut those up too, because it was fun that we got the pants of the guy who was known for being extremely sweaty. I can't remember his name anymore, but he played for the Steelers and then he went back to the Steelers.
Center, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even able to cut those up. You don't want to like you wouldn't want to desecrate a flag. You don't want to desecrate a Seahawks uniform.
I can feel that. Yeah. Or just like intentionally breaking something, right? That always feels a little weird.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
But maybe it's
all right.
More of the
Full
idea
that
more listeners can share in the having a little piece of a legitimate actual Seahawks uniform. It might be kind of fun.
Nope. Full jerseys. You got to do really well to get the full jersey.
Okay.
That way Brandon doesn't have to suffer through his internal agony of cutting one up.
Also, time consuming. Like I'm still working on getting prizes out too. So adding more work to my workload might not be ideal.
Not ideal. That's awesome though. I appreciate that from Chris, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, we'll get that. It might be cool for you just to have the logo. You might not need the chain.
Oh, I don't know. I think I might need to take a whole left turn in my whole fashion sense direction. Just start wearing giant plastic chains as a whole.
You should wear this to the Buffalo game.
I should, not only that, but I should shape it in the form of a crown and wear it on top of my head. Like, that'd be even better.
A lot of potential
glue it together.
A lot of potential. Yeah. All right. Well, we will get into the Pick'em League on Thursday. I think we are awaiting a ruling from our overlord Evie on some things that she saw from the Pick'em League that we might have to get to on Thursday, Adam.
Well, we cannot and will not rush our Supreme Overlord's decision. She is just and righteous, and I totally believe that she will make the exact right decision when the time suits her.
And we will abide by her ruling because she is the Overlord.
Absolutely.
But I do need to get your Thursday night pick. Broncos at Saints. The Broncos coming off a loss where we both predicted them to win, and they failed against the Chargers. This is a 53-47 split in favor of the home team Saints, Adam.
Okay. Broncos, and you pick the Saints.
What? Why?
Why? That way the Broncos will win, because if you pick the Broncos too, then they'll lose for sure, and then we both lose the pick. But if you at least pick the Saints, then I'll still win.
Somehow I don't really appreciate your strategy here, because I would rather...
I love it. I think it's great.
I would rather us both pick the Broncos to win and be wrong and have the Broncos lose. So I'm also picking the Broncos.
No. I'll have to text Bronco Jared and let him know not to watch his team on Thursday.
Yeah, because...
Sean Payton revenge game, man. Come on. Broncos all the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's maybe why 40% are so high about the Broncos going on the road. Also, are we going to see more Rattler? He was better than I expected for the first game from him.
Give him some credit the first half for a mid-round pick. Yeah, he did some things. And then he looked like South Carolina Rattler, like in the second half. And it just, Yeah,
he kept it competitive for the first half, though.
Yeah.
All right. I just think against that Broncos defense, that's going to be too tough.
Absolutely. Rattler will be snake bit. Yeah. Worst dad joke of the night.
On to do better and better at life. I'm going to kick things off with Do Better this week, and I'm going with lids.com because one of the things I saw, Adam, in our Facebook group this past week, Kenneth, he was talking about how he got a Geno Funko Pop. You know those little Funko Pop dolls that come in the little boxes? They're kind of little bobbly head cartoon dolls. They're fun. And a lot of times you don't see Seahawks players. Like we have DK. I know they did the Griffin brothers a while back. But it's not often that you see too many Seahawks players. Well, they got a Geno Smith Funko Pop. Kenneth got it. And if you haven't seen these boxes, they're like really flimsy boxes. But they're intended to be collectible inside the box. Like a lot of people stack them just for their displays. And yeah, they stack up really nicely and you can keep them inside the box. They're like a little display piece. But what Lids did is they threw this flimsy box with the character in it into like a vinyl bag and just shipped it that way. And lo and behold, it shows up to Kenneth's door and the box is like smashed. Thankfully, at least Geno was okay inside, but the box completely mangled. Lids.com. These are collectible things. You ship them in an appropriate box, not in a vinyl bag. Do better.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Like, for example, when Britt and I ship boards for Gulchworks, like they come in bubble wrap in the box, and it's a solid piece of frickin' wood. Like right. These are delicate collectibles, and you can't even do that much. Come on, man.
Do they not know that the post office is not delicately handling every little package? No, it's getting thrown in. You never know what it's going to be thrown underneath. It's going to get smashed. And you got to protect against that stuff. Throw it in a sturdy box. Like, what's the difference between a vinyl bag and a 50-cent sturdy cardboard box? Come on now.
About an extra 75 cents. They can afford it.
I was upset for Kenneth.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm angry on the inside right now. But this next part here might do better this week. This annoyed me to no end. I can't believe this showed up in my news feed to begin with. Like, I don't read People magazine. I don't know why this article popped up for People, but the title of the article was "Woman Spills Wine on Friend's Pillow, Replaces It with Identical Thrifted Version That Leaves Friend Fuming." This is such a great example of how petty and just freaking, what would the word be? Just being so materialistic that you can't get out of your own way. So this was posted on Reddit. A 24-year-old woman went over to her friend's house, who she calls, quote, Wendy. So fake Wendy invited everybody over her apartment, housewarming, just got the apartment, had this couch. Apparently Wendy must have some money as well, because they're all sitting on the couch. They have, and again, because a lady apartment, there's 15 pillows on the couch for like, I don't know, no reason. You don't need it. But she has this decorative pillow on the couch, and the Reddit user spilled some red wine on it and immediately felt bad, tried to clean it up, tried to wash it, tried to do all the things. No luck. Stain was not coming out. Red wine, not happening. So she asked the guy, hey, I'll replace it. What can I do to you? She's like, oh, it's from this one place, and it's $70 $70 for this tiny, stupid, decorative pillow that she was really bummed out, apparently, that had been ruined. And it just really, I mean, what does she think? She's the catfishing dude? It doesn't tie the room together, all right? It's just one decorative pillow. So she's like, okay, I'll get it figured out, but it's going to take me a few weeks to come up with the money, because I got to have enough gas money to get to work and that sort of thing. So gal goes out one day at a thrift store, sees the exact freaking pillow. Looks brand new at the thrift store, buys it for way cheaper, like $10, takes it to friend. Friend is super excited. Fake Wendy, super excited. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you were able to do this. How are you going to get to work? I thought that was going to cut into your gas money. She goes, oh, I only paid $12 because I got it from a thrift store. Apparently Wendy picked this thing up and like threw it at her and was like, ew, I don't want this dirty, nasty thing. Like, What are we talking about? Should we replace it with the exact freaking pillow? And you are too freaking hoity-toity and fancy that you need a $70 pillow in return? And the comments on this thing, well, I mean, she is out $70. You know what? If you're dumb enough to spend $70 on a stupid decorative pillow and it gets some red wine spilled on it, you deserve to lose that $70. The gal who spilled the wine didn't choose to spend $70 on that. Dumbass fake Wendy did. And when it got ruined, she can't take an adequate replacement because she's too freaking good from something that came from the thrift store. That's bad form. Fake Wendy, I have zero respect for you. Do better.
Why doesn't fake Wendy just accept the pillow and take it to like a dry cleaners or something if she's that concerned about it coming from a thrift store that maybe it isn't like, because thrift stores generally, when you take your stuff to the thrift store, you're not cleaning it beforehand. It's not like the thrift stores throw stuff in the washer before they go ahead and resell it.
Oh, she cleaned it before she brought it to the apartment, by the way.
Oh, the guy you left out that detail.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Well, yeah.
And fake Wendy said she doesn't buy, quote, soft furnishings secondhand.
Well, it was a secondhand pillow when it got ruined by the wine.
Right. Like, just how petty. Like, and now this has turned into a thing to where now the whole group of friends has a group chat called the Pillow Crisis of 2024. And like, it just.
But whose side do you take? Is this group ever going to be right again?
Not as long as fake Wendy is, tyrannical with her stupid decorative pillows. No, take your pillow, because she acts like if you take a secondhand pillow that you automatically turn into a hobo. Like I took this. Now I'm going to lose my home.
And you couldn't possibly have 14 pillows on the couch. It really needs that 15th one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm with you. Fake Wendy is making too much out of this. But this might just be a guy thing. Like maybe the ladies in our audience will have something.
Brittany, if somebody replaced your decorative pillow with an identical pillow that was from the thrift store, would you have a hard time with that?
Ew.
She sarcastically said ew.
Well, I'm having a hard time deciding too, because Brittany also lives in a hobo shack in the woods off grid.
That's true. Maybe we're the wrong people to ask, but it just feels like such a materialistic thing to like start turning into a big brouhaha with friends. Like you invite people over to your house. If something gets ruined, it gets ruined. That's what happens.
And when you said this initially, I thought that's where you're going with it, is that she spilled wine on it and then covertly tried to replace it. And the friend found out that, like, why wouldn't you just tell me that you ruined the pillow? But she did. She told her, and she said she was going to find a way to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. 24-year-old Reddit user is totally in the right here. Fake Wendy is a dumb, petty catfish.
All right. On to Better at Life.
All right. Who you got?
My Better at Life this week is for Baker Mayfield. And he went undercover as part of the Manning channel. They do like some fun videos. I think they were the ones that initially did the undercover Jared Goff video a few years back, where he was like the undercover walk-on quarterback at Ventura College. And maybe I'm just a sucker for quarterbacks going undercover, but what they did is they set up Baker. They gave him a clean shave, but they gave him a mustache and a mullet, and put him in with this group of Tampa Bay fans who were going through the Tampa Bay facility. And like he would do things. And nobody knew even on the Tampa Bay staff that was guiding the tour that it was actually Baker that was part of this fan group that they were giving a tour of the facility. So like he's like getting into the lockers and making jokes about how he's going to steal some of the pairs of shoes when they go through the shoe area. And it was making some of the fans uncomfortable, but it was kind of funny what he was doing. And part of it too, at the end for the reveal, they all got him out on the field. And like he's been talking all day about how, he was this varsity quarterback and how he could really rip it, but he had this knee injury. And so they give fans the opportunity to go out, and if they can throw a football 30 yards, then all the people as part of the group, they get a free football. But if somebody in the group can throw it 50 yards or more, they all get signed footballs. And so I think there was somebody in the group that was able to throw it 30 yards and all got footballs for the group. And then that's when Gus Swayze like rips off his knee brace and ends up throwing bombs on the field and just ripping them in there to some of the Tampa receivers that were out on the field who also didn't know it was him. But he ends up throwing, like a 60-yard bomb and gets all of his fellow fans that have been touring with him all day before he then rips off the prosthetic nose and reveals himself as Baker Mayfield. Just a fun video. I'm a sucker for undercover stuff. Baker Mayfield going undercover as Gus Swayze. He is better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, that's pretty fun, man. You are now the second human to recommend that to me. James from down the street said it was really great. And I just haven't watched it yet because it's like 30 minutes.
It is pretty long. I did some skipping over parts because it's way too long, but you can get the gist of it by skipping over some of the parts and just getting more to the end.
That's cool, man. It does seem like Baker has a great sense of humor, and that's pretty fun that he would participate in that sort of thing. I do like the undercover QB stuff too. I really do. I think that's a lot of fun.
I'm glad they put it out there.
All right, man. My better at life for Skip Bayless. Brandon, I am breaking rules and traditions here. This is something I've never done before because I am so confident in what is going to happen this upcoming weekend that I am preemptively giving better at life than Skip Bayless to our head coach, Mike McDonald. I think he's going to have this team ready to go. I think he's going to have a little extra time to get this defense tightened up. They're going to fix 2 or 3 of those little things. Geno's going to have a huge game against a piss poor defense, and we're going to dance all over the graves of the Dirty Birds. So for a preemptive dub that's coming down the pike and a great job this upcoming Sunday that he's about to do. Better at life than Skip Bayless, Mike McDonald.
This has no way to backfire at all. This is 100% foolproof because you have never done this before. Now it's happening. Our Seahawks are getting the win this weekend.
100%. I felt like it was time to put something out there that was a little declarative and to, maybe like breathe some hope into the fan base. It feels like we're all sitting here with our heads down like, oh my gosh, we suck again and we'll suck forever. And that's all the sucking that we'll do. Let's have a little encouragement, a little fun here. And again, we're not going up against a world beater team. We're going up against one of the most mediocre franchises in all of mediocre franchises in the Atlanta Falcons.
Mediocre franchise with mediocre quarterback Kirk Cousins.
Mediocre fan base.
But you know who's not mediocre? It is our $12 members of the flock and above. Why don't we close this out by recognizing them for all the work that they do supporting this show, Adam?
Heck yeah, man. Let's get to it.
Keith Ketover, a.k.a. Flocktimus Prime, University of Cybertron, Little Flockers, roll out.
DCH from Sparks, Nevada, the University of Montana Grizzlies.
Gary Blum from Chappaqua, New York, and the University of Pennsylvania, your 2016 Pick'em League champion.
Ron Pepper, UNLV Runnin' Rebels, San Francisco, California.
This is Hawk Van Dyke from the beautiful city of London and the capital of the UK.
Lisa in Seattle.
Samuel Gelber, NoHo, California.
David Van Cleve, Camas, Washington, home of the Papermakers.
Leo Jose, Luleå, Sweden, from Luleå Eskimos and Renkommaren front.
Paul from San Diego.
Aaron Fisher, coming in from Henderson, Nevada. Go Hawks!
Chris Boucher, a.k.a. the biggest little flocker, South Central Louisiana State University. Go Mud Dogs.
Hey, it's JC Schilling, back from Germany, living on beautiful Whidbey Island now with Quinn and Hudson.
Go Tyler! Go Geno!
Go Hawks!
Hey Seahawkers, my name is Garen Taylor. I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, North Idaho. Hashtag on the roads. Go Hawks.
You heard from DCH and JC. Also a big thanks once again to our executive producers, Brian Shaw, Ryan Peterson, and Brian Lowry. And continuing on down the list of $12 supporters and above is Rebecca in Manhattan Beach, California, Christina in Manassas, Virginia, Greg in Camas,
Jeremiah in the Bronx, Sven in Berlin, Deutschland, Tim in Austin, Jonathan in Ridgefield, Brandon in Huntersville, North Carolina, Kevin in Great Glen, England, Jake in Seattle, James in Beau Arts, Pepper in Greenville, South Carolina, Kevin in Surrey, BC, JC in Horsford, England, Hector in Monroe, Brian in Berlin, Connecticut, Tracy in Kaneohe, Hawaii, Connie in Gothenburg, Sweden, Tim in Olympia, Marvin in Riverdale, Utah, Glenn in Ocoee, Florida, Jeffrey in Kansas City, John in New York, Patrick in Sacramento, Bryson in Eltopia, Jeremy in Federal Way, Josh in Candor, New York, Ken in Hutto, Texas, Paul in Portland, Mario in Seattle, Cora in Dittersdeutschland, Anders in Violet, Denmark, Warren in Dundee, Oregon, Eugene in Henderson, Nevada, Jeff in Bainbridge Island, Marlon in the Greater Hawkdom, Chris in Austin, Amy in Squim, Dr. G in League City, Texas, Richard in Killeen, Texas, Joseph in Vancouver, Ryan in Salt Lake City, Jamie in Oswestry, England, Joshua in the Greater Hawkdom, Rafe in Beaverton, Oregon, DJ in Menifee, California, BB in the Greater Hawkdom, Terrence in Dallas, Spooty Poo in Olympia, Jeff in Gilbert, Arizona, Bridget in Redmond, Daniel C. in the Greater Hawkdom, Norma in the Greater Hawkdom, Jason in Panama City, Florida, Kayla in Vancouver, Tanner in Kalispell, Montana, Alexander in Oranienburg, Deutschland, Jason in Portland, Ovary Smasher 69 in Phoenix, Ian in Seattle, B-Walls 22 in New York, Jay in Fairbanks, Alaska, Corey in Robertson, Australia, Sam in El Monte Springs, Florida, Chris in Manchester, England, Nathan in Fife, Charles in Bremerton, Mike in Kelowna, BC, Greg in Lake City, Colorado, Edward in the Greater Hawkdom, Ken in Stanwood, The Poetrist in Boise, Stu in Navarre, Florida, RJ in Bucyrus, Kansas, Marty in Melbourne, Australia, Ranger Luke in Olathe, Kansas, Chris in Fort Wayne, Indiana, John in Waco, Nebraska, Martin in Ferrum, Denmark, Root in the Greater Hawkdom, Jeremiah in the Greater Hawkdom, and Kyler in Tioga, North Dakota.
Once again, a big thanks to all of our $12 supporters and above, our new members too that came in there at the back end. Just can't thank you enough for helping to support the show. And man, also the people who have been sticking around for all these years. It's really fun to go through that list and really feel like you get to know a lot of these names when you call it off each and every month.
Oh, for sure, man. It's crazy and humbling to have that kind of support from that many of you, especially for that kind of duration. Looking forward to seeing a number of you here for the Bills game. It's going to be a good time.
Amy reminded me this week, we have to make a plan. Generally, we plan to hang out Saturday night before the game. So it's probably time that I set something up like that. So, yeah, we can get together on Saturday. We can watch the game on Sunday. Maybe go have a katsu burger again on Sunday night after the game. It's just going to be a good time. We'll talk about it more next week, too, I'm sure, as we lead into it. But a good reminder that, yeah, those Seattle meetups even outside the Seattle area, always fun and always something we look forward to.
Oh, for sure, man. Looking forward to it. Let's get that figured out. And we'll be coming off a convincing victory against the stupid Atlanta Falcons.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.